Have you ever been captivated by the funny and magical moments in I Dream of Jeannie? Behind the spotlight of its talented cast, however, lie tragic real-life stories, from addiction and divorce to unexpected deaths. What really happened after the show ended? Let's explore the truth together and honor the legacy they left behind. Let's dive in. Larry Hagman as Major Anthony Nelson. Larry Martin Hagman, born on September 21, 1931, was one of the most memorable faces on American television. When he was 34 years old, he was cast as Major Anthony Nelson, the handsome Air Force pilot and master of Barbara Eden's Jeannie, in the hit sitcom I Dream of Jeannie, 1965 to 1970. This role not only made Hagman a star, but also etched his image into television history with its humorous, romantic, and approachable character. But behind that charming exterior, Hagman soon faced countless emotional wounds after his parents divorced when he was still a child, forcing him to live away from his mother with his grandmother. He grew up with a sense of lacking affection and feeling pressured by the fame of his mother, the movie star Mary Martin. These childhood instabilities quietly planted a deep insecurity in Hagman, which led him to alcohol to calm himself. When he became famous for the role of J.R. Ewing in Dallas, 1978 to 1991, audiences saw a cunning and ruthless Hagman on screen. But in real life, he was truly struggling with an increasingly out-of-control drinking problem that put enormous stress on his family and threatened his happiness with his wife, Maj Axelson, who had stood by him for nearly 40 years. The peak of this crisis came in 1992, when Hagman was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver, a consequence of decades of abusing stimulants and alcohol. In 1995, he had to undergo a liver transplant to survive, while still trying to maintain his image as an artist through some impressive supporting roles, such as in Primary Colors, 1998, even though his mind and health had been severely worn down. Illness would not let him go, as in 2011 he was again diagnosed with throat cancer, requiring him to have a tumor removed from his tongue and continue chemotherapy. Yet he still tried to return as J.R. Ewing in the 2012 reboot of Dallas, as a way to hold on to the last of his legacy. Not long after, in July 2012, Hagman was diagnosed with myelodysplastic syndrome, which then progressed to acute myeloid leukemia, leading to his death on November 23, 2012 in Dallas at the age of 81. He passed away in the arms of his loved ones during Thanksgiving, closing a journey that was both tragic and proud. At the time of his death, his net worth was estimated at around $15 million USD, the fruit of a lifetime of dedication through I Dream of Jeannie, Dallas, and dozens of other works, leaving behind the image of an icon who was both glorious and filled with pain. Bill Daly as Major Roger Healy. William Edward Daly, born on August 30, 1927, was a familiar face on American television. When he was 38 years old, he joined the legendary sitcom I Dream of Jeannie, 1965 to 1970, in the role of Major Roger Healy, the funny, loyal, and equally troublesome friend of pilot Anthony Nelson, contributing to the witty and joyful charm of the show. This role made Bill Daly an icon of 1960s sitcoms. However, Bill Daly's real life was far from simple or lighthearted like the laughter on screen. As a child, he suffered the shock of his father leaving just 2 weeks after he was born, leaving behind a childhood full of instability and a lack of love. When he grew up and married Patricia Anderson, Daly hoped to find a peaceful haven, but that marriage also ended in divorce in 1976, leaving him a single father raising 2 children. The tragedy ran even deeper when Daly's son died at a young age, leaving him with what was described as an unimaginable pain, a wound in his heart that never fully healed, even as he continued working in television through series like The Bob Newhart Show, 1972-1978. After the storms of his first marriage, Daly tried to find new happiness with his second wife, Vivian Sanchez, and then married for a third time with Becky, But those later marriages also could not avoid ending in divorce or tragedy when Becky passed away in 2010. During all that, Daly still made efforts to preserve his passion for acting, occasionally appearing on shows like ALF, 1986, though he had to struggle to balance family responsibilities and the fading spotlight. He took his last breath on September 4, 2018 in Santa Fe, New Mexico, at the age of 91. His net worth was estimated at about $4 million USD, mostly thanks to a sitcom career that spanned decades, enough to forever imprint the image of an actor with a warm heart and an everlasting laugh. Hayden Ror, as Dr. Alfred Bellows. William Henry Ror, stage name Hayden Ror, was born on October 23, 1910, in Brooklyn, New York, and was a veteran name in American television. When he was 55 years old, he made a strong impression by portraying the deeply suspicious psychiatrist Dr. Alfred E. Bellows in the legendary sitcom I Dream of Jeannie, 1965 to 1970. Rorke's role, the colonel who was always trying to expose the irrational secrets surrounding pilot Tony Nelson, became an iconic part of 1960s television audiences. Yet behind that stern and authoritative on-screen image, Rorke carried many wounds. Coming from an artistic family with a mother who was a famous actress, Rorke soon faced the harsh pressures of Hollywood, along with a broken marriage to actress and dancer Marie Windsor, leaving him with deep emotional scars. The seemingly glamorous spotlight actually brought countless lonely nights, as Rorke had to hide his true identity in a society still burdened with prejudice. Even though he later found peace beside his life partner Eustace Addis, the shadow of depression quietly weighed on him, especially when he took on some minor roles, such as in An American in Paris, 1951, but never truly escaped the feeling of being abandoned by Hollywood. In his final years, Rorke returned to the stage, hoping to rekindle his passion through the play The Pleasure of His Company, 1980, but his health quickly deteriorated when he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a cruel and painful form of cancer. As the illness worsened, Rorke became more withdrawn, sharing little, and only received encouragement from a few close friends in the Jeannie crew. In his last months, he still tried to maintain the image of a polite and resilient man, but loneliness made his heart even heavier. Hayden Ror passed away on August 19, 1987, at his home in Toluca Lake, closing a 76-year life filled with light, but also with deep shadows. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at around $2 million USD, mostly thanks to a long television career, leaving behind the legacy of a dedicated artist who once brought laughter, but also tasted much bitterness behind the scenes. Emiline Henry, as Amanda Bellows. Emiline Henry, born on November 1, 1928, was a beautiful and charming actress of American television. When she was 37 years old, she took on the role of Amanda Bellows, the sophisticated and sometimes witty wife of Dr. Alfred Bellows, in the famous sitcom I Dream of Jeannie, 1965 to 1970, contributing to the colorful, humorous world of the show. This role made Emiline Henry a familiar face for audiences across many generations. But behind the stage lights, Emiline's life was far from smooth. She had gone through a turbulent marriage with actor and director Paul Henreid, which ended early in 1955 and left her with many deep wounds. Loneliness and the harsh demands of the acting profession left Emiline carrying constant insecurity in her heart, especially as she had to juggle maintaining laughter on screen with her own personal sadness in real life. After guest roles in The Bob Newhart Show, 1972 to 1978, and Three's Company, 1979, Emiline still could not find a lasting safe haven, making her mental life more unstable than ever. Disaster struck when Emiline discovered she had a malignant brain tumor in the late 1970s, a disease that robbed her of her strength and forced her to face her final days in pain and exhaustion. Even though she tried to keep working until her last role in Eight is Enough, 1979, she could not escape a cruel fate as her health quickly collapsed. She spent her final weeks in pain, sharing little with the outside world, holding on to an optimistic smile to encourage colleagues and loved ones. Emiline Henry took her last breath on October 8, 1979, in California, at the age of 50, and was buried at Holy Cross Cemetery, where her name is still engraved as a beautiful memory. Her net worth at that time was estimated at around $1 million USD, mostly from her television and film roles, leaving a mark as an actress with a warm heart, but whose life was far too short and full of sorrow. Barton Mlan as General Martin Peterson. Barton Mlan, born on December 25, 1902 in Columbia, South Carolina, was a renowned actor in American cinema for many decades. When he was 63 years old, he took on the role of the strict Air Force General Martin Peterson in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965 to 1969, helping to build the sharp and humorous tone of the show. This role vividly portrayed the power and seriousness of the military in the chaotic, magical world of Jeannie. But behind that strong image, Barton Mlan had to face silent pains. 2 failed marriages, first to actress Layla Bliss and later to Margot, left him with deep emotional wounds, pushing his spirit into decline for many years. Outwardly, Mlan remained tough, continuing to dedicate himself through excellent roles such as in The Maltese Falcon, 1941, and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, 1948. But inside, he carried a loneliness and insecurity. That nearly 40-year career was always accompanied by the pressure of fame and a hollow feeling in love that he rarely shared. In his later years, Mlan chose to retire to a cattle ranch in Madera County to find a bit of peace, but fate was still cruel when he developed double pneumonia, a terrible illness that quickly drained his health. He was hospitalized at the end of 1968, but despite efforts to treat it, he could not survive, and took his last breath on New Year's Day, 1969, at the age of 66. His death came far too suddenly, leaving a void for fans who still loved the image of a charismatic General Peterson on the small screen. Mlan was buried at Valhalla Memorial Park Cemetery, closing the life of a great talent, with a net worth estimated at around 1.5 million USD from dozens of successful film and television projects. That legacy is proof of a resilient and strong artist, even though he also carried many losses and heartbreak once the stage lights had faded. Vinton Hworth as General Winfield Schaefer. Vinton Hworth, born on June 4, 1906 in Washington, D.C., was one of the veteran faces of 20th century American television. When he was 63 years old, he took on the role of General Winfield Schaefer, the respected general who replaced General Martin Peterson in the final 2 seasons of I Dream of Jeannie, 1969 to 1970, bringing a tough yet humorous style to the chaotic world of Jeannie and pilot Tony Nelson. This role deeply impressed audiences and solidified Hworth's place in television history. Yet few people know that behind the spotlight, Vinton Hworth had to struggle to overcome immense professional pressures. Coming from a famous artistic family, as the uncle of movie star Rita Hayworth and a relative of Ginger Rogers, he carried tremendous expectations on his shoulders from his teenage years. Even though he had a stable marriage with actress Mary E. Hayworth, in his later years, Vinton was still working tirelessly with a dense filming schedule, constantly appearing in a series of television and stage projects from Perry Mason to Disney's Zorro, which gradually wore down his physical health. That enduring career also unintentionally pushed Vinton into a cycle of exhaustion that he rarely spoke about. After taking on the role of General Schaefer, replacing the recently deceased Barton Mlan, Vinton seemed unwilling to allow himself to rest, despite signs of declining health. Just a few weeks after completing the final episodes of I Dream of Jeannie, he suddenly passed away from a massive heart attack on May 21, 1970, at the age of 63. Vinton Hworth's legacy included more than 90 roles on the big screen, with a net worth estimated at around $1 million USD. Paul Lynde as Alan Kerr. Paul Lynde, born on June 13, 1926 in Mount Vernon, Ohio, was a sharp and unique comedian on American television. When he was 39 years old, he appeared in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965, as Alan Kerr, bringing a satirical sense of humor and a distinctive style that audiences would never forget. In addition, Lind was also famous for his role as Uncle Arthur in Bewitched and was the central figure in the hot seat on the Hollywood squares for many years, becoming one of the most popular comedians of the 1960s-1970s. But behind the laughter, Lind carried wounds that were hard to express. He had to live in secrecy about his homosexuality in a society still full of prejudice, which caused enormous pressure on his private life. Losses from his childhood, such as the death of his beloved brother in World War II and the sudden death of his parents, left him with a heavy psychological burden. In his loneliness, Lind fell into alcohol and drug addiction, leading to many scandals and reckless behavior, including an incident in which a young friend fell to his death at a hotel in 1965 after a drunken party with him. Even though he later tried to rebuild his life and successfully went through rehab in 1980, Lind still had to face his health deteriorating from many years of substance abuse. Before he died, he continued to appear regularly on television, bringing laughter to audiences, but the fatigue and stress could never be completely erased. On January 10, 1982, he was found dead in his sleep from a heart attack at the age of 55. His net worth at the time of his death was estimated at around $3 million USD, mostly from the success of Bewitched and other famous comedy shows. Michael Ansara as Blue Djinn. As Michael Ansara, born on April 15, 1922, in a small village in the territory of Syria and Lebanon, was one of the familiar faces on American television in the 1960s. When he was 43 years old, he brilliantly portrayed the role of the Blue Djinn in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965, bringing to life a powerful, yet mysterious character who left a lasting impression on audiences. In addition, he made a strong mark with his role as Cochise in Broken Arrow and Commander Kang in Star Trek, confirming his diverse acting talent across westerns, science fiction, and biblical epics. However, Ansara's private life was full of turbulence. His 15-year marriage to Barbara Eden, his co-star and the real-life Jeannie, was once admired by the public but ultimately ended in 1974, leaving him with loneliness and the pressure of raising their son Matthew while also having to shoulder his career. The tragedy cut even deeper when his only son died of a heroin overdose in 2001, breaking the heart of an aging father like him. In his later years, Ansara had to face the devastating effects of Alzheimer's disease, which gradually eroded his memory and sharpness. Although there were no widely reported severe bad habits, a busy career, 2 broken marriages before he found peace with his third wife, and the pain of losing his son all contributed to a rather sorrowful old age. Ansara passed away peacefully on July 31, 2013, at the age of 91, and was laid to rest next to his son at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. His estimated net worth of around $5 million USD was proof of a vast career spanning from Star Trek to memorable villain roles, leaving behind an unforgettable talent in American film history. Farah Faucet as Cindy. Farah Faucet, born on February 2, 1947 in Corpus Christi, Texas, gradually conquered Hollywood and became a global beauty icon of the 1970s. When she was 18 years old, she appeared as Cindy in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965, laying the foundation for her later shining journey. Her role as Jill Monroe in Charlie's Angels propelled her to the height of fame, turning her golden hair and radiant smile into a legendary image. Not only successful on screen, Faucet also made a lasting impression with the famous red swimsuit poster that took the world by storm. However, behind the spotlight, Farah's life was full of bitter upheavals. Her marriage to Lee Majors ended, and then her stormy romance with Ryan O'Neal broke her heart many times, especially when Ryan was accused by his daughter of being violent toward Farah. Her only son, Redmond, ended up in legal trouble and struggled with addiction, causing Farah endless heartache. She herself also faced rumors about abusing stimulants, which disrupted her flawless image in the media. The greatest tragedy of Faucet's life was her courageous battle with anal cancer, which began in 2006. The terrible disease dragged on, relapsed, and metastasized to her liver, forcing her to undergo a series of painful treatments. Images of Farah fighting cancer in the documentary Farah's Story powerfully inspired many people, even though she herself had to endure fatigue, loss, and a terrifying loneliness as her illness grew worse. Farah Faucet passed away on June 25, 2009 at the age of 62, leaving behind a net worth estimated at around $20 million USD, largely thanks to her success in Charlie's Angels and high-value advertising contracts. The legacy she left was not only a glorious career, but also the image of a resilient star who dared to live authentically and fought until her very last breath. Judy Carn as herself. Joyce Audrey Botterill, remembered by audiences under the stage name Judy Carn, was born on April 27, 1939, in Northampton, England, and began her path to conquering Hollywood at the age of 26, when she appeared as herself in I Dream of Jeannie, 1965. Carney quickly made her mark with the catchphrase, "Sock it to me," in Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, turning her into a television phenomenon of the late 1960s thanks to her witty, charming, and uniquely confident performance style. However, behind the laughter, Judy Carn's life was full of tragedy. 2 failed marriages, including her famous one with Burt Reynolds, left deep wounds in her heart. Carney fell into heroin addiction, which led to multiple arrests and even time in jail, corroding both her career and her public image. A car accident in 1978 broke her neck, a disaster that nearly took her life and pushed her even further into the darkness of addiction. Despite her efforts to start over, financial troubles and mental health challenges left Judy almost disappearing from the screen, even though she reappeared at some Laugh-In reunion events in the 1990s. She moved back to England to live quietly, as if wanting to distance herself from the glamour that had once hurt her so deeply. Judy Carn passed away from pneumonia on September 3, 2015, at the age of 76. Her net worth at the end of her life was only about $1 million USD, reflecting a career that was once dazzling but gradually faded because of addiction and scandal. Yet for the audience, Judy will forever be the strong, "sock it to me" girl, who was never afraid to reveal her real pain through her autobiography as a way to face and rise above adversity. Woodro Parfrey as Henry Tracy. Sidney Woodro Parfrey, born on October 5, 1922 in New York, stepped into I Dream of Jeannie in 1965 when he was 43 years old, playing Henry Tracy, a minor yet memorable character. From the Broadway stage to the small screen, Parfrey was recognized as one of television's great villains, with a gritty acting style and a unique presence. Parfrey's life also went through its share of tragedy. An orphaned childhood, followed by the brutal experiences of combat in World War II, left him with deep psychological scars, even though he rarely spoke of them. Later, Parfrey's first marriage ended in divorce, leaving him with the responsibility of raising his children, including his daughter Deborah, who also became an actress. The pressures of his career and years of family responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders, although there were no reports of bad habits such as addiction or violence. Parfrey kept working steadily through the 1970s, appearing in works like Papillon and the outlaw Josie Wales alongside Clint Eastwood, demonstrating the enduring strength of an outstanding supporting actor. Just when he was at the height of his experience, he suddenly passed away from a heart attack in 1984, after completing a role in Murder, She Wrote, shocking the artistic community. Woodro Parfrey passed away at the age of 61, leaving behind a net worth estimated at around $1 million USD thanks to decades of dedicated work. Although he was never a top star, he is still remembered as an indispensable face on Hollywood screens, someone who poured his heart into every role despite personal losses and heartbreak. Rubin as Arabian Reverend. Benny Rubin, born on February 2, 1899 in Boston, was a veteran comedian and actor who made more than 200 appearances on radio, television, and film over a 50-year career. In I Dream of Jeannie in 1965, when he was 66 years old, he played the Arabian Reverend, a small role but still memorable thanks to his skill at voice transformations and his charming acting style. Rubin was famous for his ability to imitate a wide range of voices, a talent that helped him shine from vaudeville stages to radio and television. He had a long-standing collaboration with Jack Benny, leaving behind many classic comedic moments on both radio and television. His life was generally stable, although his first marriage to Mary O'Brien ended in 1934, after which Rubin built a happy family with Annette Rubin and their 3 children. However, old age and declining health led to his death from a heart attack in 1986 at the age of 87. Rubin's estimated net worth was around $1 million USD, accumulated through decades of dedicated work in the entertainment industry. He is remembered as a devoted artist who brought laughter to millions of audiences across generations. Jane Dulo as Burly Nurse. Jane Dulo, born on October 13, 1917, is remembered for her role as the Burly Nurse, a big, quick-witted, and sharp nurse who often appeared in unexpected and comedic situations alongside Jeannie in A Dream of Jeannie starting in 1965, when she was 48 years old. With her charming vaudeville-inspired performance style, Jane Dulo brought authenticity and humor to the character of Burly Nurse, who not only supported Jeannie's magical antics, but also created a balance between the fantasy world and reality in the show. From a young age, Jane Dulo showed stage talent very early. At just 10 years old, young Bernice stepped onto the vaudeville stage, bringing laughter to audiences with dance numbers and witty sketches. Her talent was nurtured through many years of training, and an agent in New York once advised her to change her stage name to Jane Dillon to better appeal to audiences of the time. However, after a legal dispute with a radio announcer who had the same name, she returned to using Dulo and kept it for the rest of her career. Dulo had a breakthrough when she appeared on the Jack Benny program in 1964 as Benny's cook, a short role but one that made a splash thanks to her natural comedic flair. She later made her mark with the role of Nurse Molly in McHale's Navy, 1962 to 1965. Portraying a tough but kind woman that audiences would never forget. Producers at the time loved to cast Dulo in supporting roles with strong, comedic, big sister qualities, a type that was highly beloved on American television in the 1960s and 1970s. She never married and did not publicly share any romantic relationships, devoting nearly her entire life to the stage and television. After a long period of dedication, Dulo passed away following complications from heart surgery in 1994 at Cedars-Sinai Hospital at the age of 76. Her estimated net worth was about $500,000 USD, modest compared to many stars of her time, but worthy of her high-quality supporting roles and tireless, committed spirit. Abraham Sophi as Haji. Abraham Isaac Sophi, born on October 1, 1896 in Rangoon, was remembered by American television audiences for his role as Haji, the master of all the gods in I Dream of Jeannie from 1965, when he was 69 years old. In the role of Haji, Sophi brought to life an image of a powerful, dignified wizard, with a deep and resonant voice that made viewers believe in the supernatural authority of the character. Haji was the one who guided and supervised Jeannie's powers, appearing whenever she needed advice or was threatened by misusing her magic, creating dramatic peaks and sparking the audience's curiosity throughout the show. Surprisingly, Sophi grew up in a Jewish family, with a father who was a wealthy merchant known for constructing the Sophi building, which still stands in the city center today. He was well educated at Diocesan Boys High School, then continued studying in England, and initially worked as a teacher both in his homeland and in London. But his passion for the arts drove him onto the stage in 1921 in London, marking the beginning of a performing journey that would last nearly 60 years. In the 1930s, Abraham Sophi began moving into film, appearing in many movies both in Britain and America. One of his most significant roles was playing Benjamin Disraeli in the play Victoria Regina on Broadway, 1935, which brought him wide recognition among American audiences. After that, Sophi became a familiar face in epic and dramatic films, for example as the Judge Doctor in A Matter of Life and Death, 1946, or St. Paul in Quo Vadis, 1951. Abraham Sophi stood out for his commanding voice, dignified appearance, and an acting style reminiscent of an Eastern sage, making him especially suited for advisor, wizard, judge, or clergy roles. The role of Haji in I Dream of Jeannie was perhaps the most complete testament to these qualities, helping him leave a lasting mark on American television viewers. Sophi had a peaceful family life, sharing more than 60 years with his wife Mary. He passed away in 1988 at the Motion Picture and Television Country House and Hospital in California due to congestive heart failure at the age of 91. His net worth was estimated at around $1 million USD, reflecting a quiet yet enduring and dedicated career. Ted Cassidy as Habib. Theodore Crawford. Cassidy was born on July 31, 1932. He joined the series I Dream of Jeannie when he was just 33 years old, 1965, playing the role of Habib, a giant and powerful wizard with the ability to influence the entire world of genies. Appearing in episodes revolving around Jeannie's scheming sister, Cassidy's Habib made a strong impression with his majestic, imposing presence, combined with a charming humor that was the spirit of the series. Despite a flourishing career, Cassidy had to go through a lonely childhood, often bullied by classmates because of his oversized appearance, so different from the other children around him. That feeling of alienation clung to him throughout his teenage years, making him always reserved and cautious as an adult. Later, when he appeared in The Addams Family, 1964 to 1966, with the famous role of Lurch, the sudden success forced Cassidy to carry the burden of fame, which only deepened the loneliness that had quietly existed within him. His marriage to Margaret L. Cassidy, which seemed like a peaceful haven, eventually broke down after years of disagreements and distance. During the exhausting divorce, Ted continued accepting offers for special roles such as the android Rook in Star Trek. But behind the scenes, he was worn out from family conflicts and a dense work schedule. Fellow actors have recalled that this stress pushed Cassidy's mental state into crisis, even though on the surface he maintained a calm demeanor that few could see through. In 1979, just a few years after providing the roaring voice of the Hulk in The Incredible Hulk, Cassidy had to undergo surgery to remove a heart tumor. Post-surgery complications took his life when he was only 46 years old, an unbearably tragic ending. Cassidy's net worth was estimated at around $2 million USD, a modest amount compared to the legacy he left in the hearts of the public. The tragedies of the stars of A Dream of Jeannie have left fans with so much regret. Their lives, though full of pain, will always remain an inspiration. Who do you think left the deepest impression? Share your thoughts and help spread these stories.